All right, peace and blessings, peace and blessings. Assalamu alaikum, shalom. Welcome, 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 everyone. We are back and we are live. And our topic today is an American reckoning, a conversation on the Black American inheritance. As we know that next year, America will be officially 250 years old. And we have been here, and we have been a part of this journey in America. Some would say that we have been just passengers that were lucky enough to get on the bus. But definitely we are much more than passengers on a bus. We built the damn thing. And we have with us tonight, of course, Doc. Doc, I forgot to plug the blog, Manhood, Race, Culture. You give that information out.
Yeah, I got a blog site. Getting back to the point where I'm gonna start putting up content on it regularly. The blog site name is the address is manhoodraceculture.com, and we also have a YouTube channel, Manhood Race and Culture. If you type in Manhood Race Culture, we should pop up.
Definitely. So before we get into the first video, what's your thoughts on our conversation tonight? An American reckoning, a conversation on the Black American inheritance.
Well, you know, the thing for me is that the idea of it being nearly 250 years is, on one hand, an awesome accomplishment that Black folk are still alive in this land. But at the exact same time, there's nothing special about 1776. Let's just start it off right there. There's nothing special about that date. The suffering of Black folk in the West began way before 1776. And to be honest with you, 1776 wouldn't have happened had Black folk not built the infrastructure for this nation. And when we're talking about Black folk building the infrastructure, we're talking about from Florida to the British colonies through Louisiana. Keep in mind the Louisiana Purchase, Napoleon Bonaparte, Haiti, the Haitian Revolution, all of that is tied together. Black folk are at the center of that. So when you're talking about a American reckoning, I think that there's a sub-discourse about what is owed to persons of African descent and what do we owe the West, because that's one of the issues that you'll have come up. I remember having a very contentious argument with a brother in Ghana about how fortunate we were to have been taken to the West and away from Africa. And I pointed out to the brother, I said, well, we were so fortunate. Why do you see so many of us returning back here? So the idea of what the outside world thinks the Black experience is like here in America is something that has to be discussed. So definitely close to 250 years for the founding of this nation, but we predate America in this race problem on the North American continent in the Western Hemisphere predates 1776.
And could you also break down, because I'm quite sure some people, when they hear 250 years old, and then they say, but we've been in bondage here for damn near 400 years. So where does the math go off? Can you break that down for everybody?
Yeah, very, very simple. When you think about remember the great rhyme that they teach all preschool children, Columbus sailed the ocean blue in 1492. So in many ways, when we're talking about Africans being under European control, and I know that there are going to be some people who are going to jump up in arms and say, well, that's not true. We were here before 1490. I'm talking about Africans being under European control. So when you're talking about the kickoff to Africans under European control in the West, you have to start with 1492. The settling of the British mainland colonies, and many people mistakenly believe that Jamestown, the the first colony. Jamestown is not the first British colony. It's Roanoke, the lost colony, the colony that did not make it. And keep in mind that we're talking about the predating of Africans to the British colonies. Those first two colonial attempts at settling, Roanoke and Jamestown, those Europeans turned to cannibalism. They couldn't make it.
Mm.
We arrive under dubious circumstances to the Jamestown colony in 1619. So that's really the date. If we're talking about the arrival of Africans on the mainland British colonies, is 1619, and that's where the clock should actually begin. And if you begin that clock there, that would mean that we've been here for 406 years already. So the idea of the 250th is shortchanging us. So the actual date is going to be 1619 for the British mainland colonies. For the opening of the West, it's going to be 1492. And we have to always be very, very aware and understand that when you're talking about the populating of the West with persons of African descent, we have three locations where our people, quote unquote, landed. The most populated area was the Caribbean. Number two is going to be Brazil. That's why when you see Carnival, it looks black, it looks African. And a distant third is actually going to be the North American continent. So if you're talking about Black folk and you started with the British mainland colonies, it's not even 1776, it's 1619.
Mm. Perfect. So let's go ahead and jump into the first video.
Let's go.
Okay.
America marks 250 years, and C-SPAN is there to commemorate every moment, from the signing of the Declaration of Independence to the voices shaping our nation's future. We bring you unprecedented all-platform coverage, exploring the stories, sights, and spirit that make up America. Beginning July 4th, join us for remarkable coast-to-coast coverage celebrating our nation's journey like no other network can. America 250. Over a year of historic moments, only on the C-SPAN networks.
Okay, so that short clip, the first video, as you can see, advertising what I would like to call the American storefront. And in this American storefront, if we look at it from a position, not as Americans, but if we look at it from the position of an immigrant, Doc, what if you was an immigrant and you saw that video? What would you think if you were, from Venezuela or somewhere in South America? What would your thoughts be? You on mute, Doc.
You're talking about a recent brown immigrant then, or an immigrant in general, or who they have forgotten were immigrants. If I were to see that, it would be in many ways, and you can kind of see the propaganda part of it, and why so many of these people who have made the decision to risk their lives and their children's lives to come to this nation. It is a hopeful story. It is a story where, if told from that angle, you would think that the streets are paved with gold. Many people who are not from here do not believe that there's homelessness in America. They do not believe that many of the social ills and problems that we encounter, they don't believe that in mass incarceration of people, because it's not a part of the American story. And what C-SPAN is in many ways propagating and promoting is that very story, that America is the land of opportunity. But those who are trapped within its borders recognize it for what it is usually, And I just say usually, because one of the foremost problems that we actually have is that so many people are, I call them unscrupulous,
Mm.
because their problem with America is not inequality. It is the fact that they're at the bottom of the totem pole. And that's an issue. That's a major, major issue that should be addressed and dealt with. And I yield, brother.
When you say that they're at the bottom of the totem pole, that's their issue. Explain on that a little bit.
Well, the poor in a capitalist nation are always going to have these grandiose ideas that one day my ship will come in. One day I'll be at the top. And if you were to put them at the top, they wouldn't have any more problem with exploiting poor people for their own financial gain and profit than we see the wealthy and the elite doing it right now. So in many ways, when you talk about the American problem, you're talking about what should be the ethos of get rich or die trying, because that's the ultimate goal here in this nation. It's not for justice. It's not for equality or any of those things. These people are coming here, and these people are operating. And I'm talking about many of the 14th Amendment native born people. They're operating with the idea of cash rules everything around me. And he who has the gold makes the rules. And that's it. That's the American way of life.
Mm. It's very interesting because at work, I have a lot of immigrants that work there with us. And we were just having a conversation. We had one person from India, one person from Albania, one person from Korea, and then myself, so everybody sitting there had their own unique story. And what really caught my attention was that, when they go home back to their home country, they're not seen as Indian or Albanian or Korean. They're seen as American. And I was shocked that they would be seen as American, even though they still speak the language of their country. They know what their country is about, but they're seen as Americans now and not, Korean or Indian or Albanian. And that seemed to me was kind of weird. What's your thoughts on that?
I back exactly what it is that you're saying, that quite simply, being in this nation for any time, it changes you into something that you don't even recognize. You don't recognize that change in how you think, how you walk, how you talk. And probably the greatest example that I give my students when I would be going to Africa every summer, I would try and explain it to them about, when you get there, you're going to be looked at as an American. You're not going to be looked at as Black. You're an American. And I was there when Obama was running, and everywhere I went, these Africans would run up to me and they would say to me, Obama's brother, you are Obama's brother. Okay. And I'm like, okay, y'all believe that I'm Obama's brother. Okay. That's an interesting take. But they recognize me as an American, and they believe that we're all rich and this and that, and there's the world is our oyster. So it's the Americanness in you. And back to my students and preparing them for their trip abroad. How many of you, and I'll ask you, I act like I'm talking to my students. Have you ever experienced a rolling blackout?
No, not a rolling blackout.
Yeah, see, and that's the thing. They had at least 3 rolling blackouts a day. We're in class, we're going over some things, and the power would go out for 90 minutes. And what we were told is the country does not have enough electricity to run 24/7. So they shut certain regions off for 90-minute intervals, and it's just your turn. And just
Wow.
imagine, just imagine being there. And it's that old thing where they talk about putting a frog in a pot and you
Mhm.
slowly turn the heat up on it. That's what it feels like in those rooms. Because you can hear at the first 5 minutes, you're like, oh, okay, you get used to it's dark in here. You can use sunlight. But by minute 15, it's thing got warm. By minute 30, you're starting to sweat. By minute 45, you're hot.
Mm.
And you're gonna be hot until that power kicks back in and cools that room down. And by the time you get comfortable again, boom, it's out again. Think
Mm.
about the privilege when we take it for granted that when we
Mm.
walk to a wall, we hit a switch and all the lights come on. One of the most shocking things, and it led to a lot of disagreement. When you leave your hotel room, and every hotel room has a personal water heater, a hot water heater. Okay.
Mhm.
You leave your hotel room, you leave it on as an American.
Mhm.
They look at that as a waste of energy. So
Mm.
they go into your room and they turn that off. So when you come back, you know someone's been in your room because the hot water is not hot anymore. And you're only getting, I would put it at maybe 3 gallons of hot water. It may be two in a little, it's in like in a little thing that's on the wall. Americans are used to you done ran through that amount of hot water just by warming up your shower.
Exactly.
And another, the last one that I'll give you about how Americans lived and things like that is going to a restaurant. We went to a restaurant in this. We were between the Cape Coast and Kumasi, about a 4 to 5 hour drive. We wanted to stop and get something to eat, so we stopped and we got something to eat.
Mhm.
Only half of us got food. The other
Mm.
half didn't get anything.
Mm.
We ordered up all of their food.
What?
There was no more food. When the manager of the restaurant came out, he said, "We have nothing left." Like he was saying, "You hungry Americans have eaten up everything we had."
Wow.
And they only made the 2 to 3 hour drive to market once or twice a week.
Mm.
So you can imagine the reaction and think about the reaction
Mm.
of Americans who are used to going somewhere. We're used to going to a buffet. You got food they got it in the back waiting to fill it back up. It's not like
Mhm.
that. So your worldview, your perspective changes.
Mm.
And that's being generous by talking about people from a foreign land who come here and get change. Can you imagine being born here? And it's
Mm.
one of the things that I say consistently about the argument that immigrant groups can come here and within 1 or 2 generations, they've lifted themselves up out of poverty. And Black folks seem to be chained to the bottom of the socioeconomic ladder. The truth of the matter is that you can't in any way, you can't in any way compare where we're coming from as far as poverty goes and compare where they come from as far as poverty goes. Those are two very, very different levels of poverty.
Mm.
You know, my best friend's brother, his uncle Ray, he played minor league baseball. And he says, well, I had he was a shortstop. He said, listen, I can tell you how you can know if you're not gonna make it to the majors. He said, if they bring in some South American, Hispanic, Mexican guys and they play your position, you ain't making it, bro.
Mm.
They will run through a bus to catch that ball because if they fail, they go back to a third world country. He said, say whatever you want to about Harlem, about Brownsville, or what have you. When I failed, I went back home and resumed my life. So it's a whole different orientation. And it's one of the reasons why you have such animosity between continental Africans, really persons of African descent anywhere in a non-first world nation, and Black folk in America. They look at us as wasting opportunity. They look at us as being foolish, being lazy, and what have you. They don't know our story. They don't know our struggle. And one of the things that ultimately ends up happening, and when you really think about the the continental African versus we'll deal with the African American Negro. One has been educated by Europeans. The other one has been educated by white folk. And you think they're going to be able to get their heads wrapped around anything? Not at all. They don't know our story. Many of them believe, and it's one of the worst things that you'll ever see. You want to talk about something being heartbreaking. You'll find some of their undesirables patterning themselves after what we refer to as hood movies. That's their image of what a bad nigga is.
Wow.
They believe that Old Dog was an actual character. They believe that we live like they see in Boys in the Hood. And one of the more unfortunate aspects of that is that they extend that and apply that to their own life and engage in crime, different schemes, different scams. And I yield, brother.
Well, you dropped two things definitely that I want to explore a little bit more with you. The first one, where you talked about the power outages, the rolling blackouts. Now, every African that I've known all had degrees. I've never met an African without a degree.
But you've never been to Africa.
True, I've never been to Africa.
So there's a filter going on right there.
Okay.
You get what I'm saying?
Right.
Everybody don't get to come. I met a brother who was a barber over there, which is a whole different game. Their barber game. They don't use, many of them don't use like electric, like wall clippers, the electric. They're literally using a razor blade. It's one of the most amazing things that you'll ever see.
Wow, a razor blade.
It looks like the best way I can describe it. Imagine a shank that they would use in prison, where they would take a toothbrush and they would put a razor. That's what many of them are using.
What?
Will blow your mind to see it, and line you up and hook you up like you wouldn't believe.
Wow.
Yeah. But
wow.
And the reason I bring that up is that the barber that I'm talking about, his dream, for whatever reason, I guess we all have our own dreams and something sparks those dreams. His dream was to go to Russia.
To Russia?
Yeah, he wanted to go to Russia. And I was like, man, Russia? He said, yeah. And I don't remember the explanation as to why, but he told me he was saving his money. And I said, okay, how long do you think that you're going to have to save to have enough money to get the flight and the hotel room? And how long do you think this brother planned on saving?
Or 20 years, 30 years?
I think it was 23 years.
Wow.
And I'm like, man, that's some patience. That's some patience there. But go ahead with what you were saying about the ones you met have degrees.
Right. And so this question about the power outages, the rolling blackouts, the roads being built, they're not teaching people to be, electricians, road builders. They're not teaching their people to be these things, to be able to do what need to be done for themselves.
These are persons of African descent. Let's start there. And you've heard me say, I say this often. that the greatest disease affecting Black people, and this can be extended to Africans, is mental illness.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I was at a resort in the Cape Coast. This is before we started staying at One Africa. Anybody ever makes it to the Cape Coast of Africa, go to One Africa. That's where the Black folk is at. The repatriated Black folk. That's sort of the epicenter of their community. I'm at this resort, and I had a rule for my students: you can't eat with each other. You're on a whole different continent, and you have all these different flavors and types of people, all of them not African. You got to go and have breakfast, lunch, and dinner with them. You introduce yourself, you sit down, you find out who they are, you learn to talk to people. Well, I do the same thing myself. And I talked to a brother who was an electrical engineer. He made electrical grids. That's what his company did. My question to him, and he was Ghanaian, I said, why don't y'all fix this electrical grid?
Right.
And he said, well, brother, we offered to. And the Ghanaian government did not trust us. They said they did not believe that we knew what we were doing. And so we did not get that contract. They gave the contract to Taiwan because their leaders were somewhere at some type of conference in Taiwan, and the Taiwanese did not have a rolling blackout. And they were just so enamored and impressed by that. Okay. Taiwan said, yes, we will fix your grid. The Ghanaian government never asked the Taiwanese leaders who made their grid. He said if they had, they would have learned that my company did it.
Wow.
And the price that we quoted for the Ghanaian government to bring a working, non-failing power grid was half of what Taiwan charged them. Taiwan charged them twice as much and kept half of the money. And they paid us the other half to go, he said, to be here right now and to work on their electrical grid. And I just looked at the brother. I said, you know, there's nothing that I've seen or I've heard here that convinces me more that Black people and Africans are genetically related. Because that's how their minds work. Yeah. And he was just deadpan serious. He said, you know how embarrassing that was for us? For Taiwan to call us and offer us the contract?
Wow. That's ridiculous. That is ridiculous.
Hey, you're dealing with some ridiculous people.
Now, the second question, you made a difference. You said European, and then you said white folk. Why did you make that delineation between the two groups?
Point to me a nation where white folk exist in Europe.
Well, I would think they all would consider themselves to be white folks.
Oh, no. The Irish to this day don't like the British. The Germans have problems with everybody. You see what the Russians have done to Ukraine? They're not on the same team. They're not coming. They recognize that they don't even come from the same historical background. So when you're talking about the white folk here in this nation, you're talking about not a different population because they come out of Europe. But at some point, when we talk about this idea of the American melting pot, they boil at a very low level because they go ahead and get together for a common cause. You got to remember the idea of whiteness as the idea of Blackness is not genetically based. It is in many ways politically expedient social construct. Make no mistake about it. When's the last time you saw a German in Philly? When's the last
I
time you
haven't
saw?
that I know of.
But you seen some white folk though.
Oh yeah.
So what happened to the Germans? What happened to the Polish? What happened to the Russian? What a UFO came and got them, took them away, and left white folk in place? No. You have to remember what Brother Malcolm said when he said that the first word that immigrants learn when they come through Ellis Island, and I would argue that when they come through Texas ports as well, because everybody didn't just come through Ellis Island. You have a place out here called Schulenburg, where a lot of them came through. And when you hear the word Schulenburg, you know they German.
Exactly.
Okay. And if you ever, the only reason I know this is I got a flat tire at the exit for Schulenburg, and their claim to fame is they make the world's best beef jerky. That's okay, Schulenburg. But Malcolm made this point about people when they come through Ellis Island, the immigrants. He said the first word that they learn is nigga. And when you really think about and look at America's history through something other than rose-colored glasses, we have this moment after World War I where, and you have to remember that these new immigrant populations, the Polish, the Russians, the Germans, the Italians, they aren't white. The only people who are white before World War I are white-skinned Anglo-Saxon, meaning British, and Protestant-believing people. How many non-white presidents has America ever had?
Just one that I know of, Barack Obama.
Obama. How many non-Protestant?
I think they all were except for Biden, wasn't he? Biden and Kennedy were the only two Catholics, right?
Yeah, the only two Catholics, Biden and Kennedy. They killed Huey P. Long before he could become president. So each one of those markers, being white skin, being of British ancestry, and Protestant belief system, means something. When you think about how many presidents you've only had one that was non-white, and you've only had two that were non-Protestant who happened to be Catholic. So it isn't until the post-World War I period where we have this furor that is coming from white folk, and the social organization for white folk is the Ku Klux Klan, the Knights of the White Camellia. It's these white terrorist organizations, and they're demanding in the post-World War I period that these new immigrants become American, that they become white. Okay. It's not a situation where they're going to allow them to even speak their native tongue in the public space anymore. No, you need to learn English. You better start celebrating Christmas. They threw them a bone or two. That's why you still have a St. Patrick's Day. But by and large, and we refer to this moment as the second Klan, because the second Klan rides on these new immigrant populations and forces them to conform. After World War I, these white folk were angry because they said the only reason that we went and fought that war over in Europe is because these new immigrants still have, it's a lie, but these new immigrants still have some affinity for their home country. It's time for you to either become an American or get out. And so you see that melting pot percolating. And make no mistake about it, the rallying point, the entry point to be white is hatred of black folk. That's what they rally around. They don't have anything else in common outside of their hatred for black folk. And they will rally together. They will come together, and they will win, because numerically in a quote unquote representative democracy, a republic, numbers matter mightily. So you have the Irish, the Polish, the Russian, all of these people saying, okay, we're going to be white and we're going to all vote together. And then we can fight amongst ourselves for the resources after we won. First step to getting political power is going to be group solidarity Our group identity is whiteness.
Mm-hmm.
I challenge people all the time. If you don't believe that whiteness is something that was made up in this nation, point to me. If I were to ask you, where are Germans from?
Germany,
Where are Italians from?
Italy,
Where are the Irish from?
Ireland,
Where are white people from?
America.
There ain't no white land out there. This was a politically expedient decision that we're going to suppress our differences with each other, and we're going to work together to capture all of the political and economic resources. And they've done it so well that they even got to the point where they educated our children.
Mm-hmm.
They poured into the minds of Black children. So the reason they're able to do that is because they control the mayor's office, they control the governor's mansion, they control the city council.
Mm-hmm.
That's how they're able to do that. It's the same as if the Jewish Alliance, I'm sure they have an alliance where they educate their children and they go and they decide what's going to be taught at the yeshivas and things like that. Would they ever elect Khalid Abdul Muhammad to set their curriculum?
Nope.
What's the difference? He can't get any closer to getting inside of that school to teach them kids anything about history and life. He can't impact their curriculum. They wouldn't stand for it.
Right.
And the irony is white folk, by and large, would not stand for Black folk like us. Go into public schools where our taxpayer dollars go and our children go, and to have any impact upon a curriculum. It's why our children have read the Diary of Anne Frank and can't tell the difference between a Sada Shakur and a Fini Shakur.
Wow. Definitely. Okay, we're going to go ahead. I want to welcome Brother Willie Rivers to the program. Peace and blessings, Brother Willie. Emerald Modesty. Peace and blessings. Welcome to the program.
Peace.
All right. So we're going to move on to the next video, the what they called as the invitation video.
After 247 years, you could say, I've seen some things. Building a democracy from scratch, it isn't easy. Or being home to hundreds of millions from everywhere on Earth. Fact is, there have been challenges since the very beginning. Uphill battles, setbacks, and injustices. But you know, Americans, we got grit. We fight for what we need. And what's right. What we want for the next generation. We take care of each other when it gets rough. We inspire each other. Innovate together. Get the job done. And create so much opportunity. Heck, that's probably why folks have been inspired to come here for so long. And now, we've got a pretty big anniversary coming up. The big 250. So, in honor of that, we're launching America's Invitation. A chance to share your thoughts on our past, the heroes you love, and your dreams for the road ahead. Because your dreams will be our future. Your story is the American story.
All right. So, Doc, we just saw the official invitation to the party. It's a beautiful, inspiring. It's designed to make every American feel included in the grand, unified story. But they showed us a great destination, but it completely hides the reality of the past and the reality of the present. What's your thoughts on there before I get into more questions?
I was waiting on them to show Cabrini Green and the Robert Taylor homes. I was like, where my brothers at? Where you mean to tell me you south side of Chicago, Chief Keef, them ain't wasn't featured? O Block? It's the narrative, and whoever controls that narrative is going to be able to tell the story and slant the story to their benefit. That's just what it is, and that it'll always be that way. And as long as they're able to utilize the voluminous monetary resources that they have at their disposal, their platform is large. And the unfortunate thing about it all is that people don't know what they don't know. You don't know what questions to ask. Now, everything that they put up there on that invitation, as a historian, I can tell you for sure it's true. But I'm more definitive in saying that it's an incomplete portrait. And one of the things that needs to be addressed in every form is quite simply, when you begin to talk about American patriotism, is that simply a euphemism for supporting rich, wealthy white folk? That if you have some type of gripe or complaint against that, if you're operating out of the truest tradition of the founding fathers, I'm talking about Washington and Jefferson and that entire crew, they were protesters. They screamed and they hollered. You can't scream and holler today. If you scream and holler today, they'll put you in a place where your screams can't be heard no more. There's nobody outside who's gonna be able to get you out of that.
True. So with the omission, the stuff that they left out, how does that calculate the quote unquote unity that they're offering? How does that really sound up or shape up to be a real unity party if they're leaving people out of the quote unquote party?
If you don't want to get down with our narrative, then get out. That's the unity that they're talking about. There's no room in there. No treasonous, seditious, revolutionary, Marxist, social democrats. They're anti-American. The irony of it is quite simply that in their zeal to advance a certain narrative and portrait of this nation, they're desecrating the idea of freedom of speech, desecrating the idea of sharing power, of having the three different branches of government being able to balance each other out in a system of checks and balances. All of that is gone. That's gone. And you want to impress me? Start at 1776. Talk about the rebellion that led to it, and move it to the present day. And look at what you have now, where you have senators who are afraid of the president. You have Supreme Court justices who are for sale. We don't even have to worry about how the Supreme Court is going to rule, because they're going to rule according to party lines. Party lines shouldn't have anything to do with the law, the interpretation of the law. But that's where we are. That's who we are. Look in the mirror. That grotesque, ugly face, that ugly thing that you see, that's us.
Exactly. I definitely agree. I want to welcome Queen. I know who I am to the program. Peace and blessings, Queen.
Peace.
And we are glad that you are here. So this America's invitation, then they say, hey, tell us what it means to you. Share a video. let's put you in the thinking of George Jackson.
Okay.
How would George Jackson answer America's invitation? What would he say in a video to America?
George Jackson would definitely talk about the injustices flowing from the prison industrial complex. He would talk about the injustice that's occurring, not just to Black folk, but to poor people, not only domestically, but how this nation has reached around the globe in exploiting Black folk. It's one of the issues that I have, and I cringe every time I have to talk about the Panthers. The image of the Panthers, we don't even talk about them as being individuals that were more red, meaning more class conscious than they were racial conscious. We don't talk about the in-depthness of the Panthers as far as reading Mao Zedong, Che Guevara, reading all these revolutionaries around the globe. So George Jackson would not only criticize this nation for what it's done to him, but he would criticize them for what they've done to all these other brothers who were locked up in Soledad prison right alongside him. We just remember George Jackson because of how he was murdered. But there's so many others, him and his brother Jonathan Jackson. But there's so many others who went to I guess we could refer to it as a quiet grave.
What does the picture, and I wish I'd have, but it just came to my mind now. What does the picture say when Jonathan, I think it was Jonathan, he's the one who had the shotgun tied to the judge's head, right?
Went up in the Marion County courthouse, took the judge hostage, the prosecutor hostage, and walked out that courthouse with him.
What does that say to not just America? What does it say to America as a whole? But what does it say of the Black voice at that time? What did that icon, and I say it's iconic to me, that picture, that iconic picture really mean in the essence of things?
It's probably one of the single greatest expressions of love for family from a muffled voice population that I've had to go to these lengths to in every way be heard. And it in many ways shows you the idea that the voiceless will be heard in one way or another.
And do you think America saw that as...
You got to remember, I think Jonathan Jackson was 15, 16 when he did that.
And how do you think America saw that as? What did they see it as?
A uncontrolled, unbridled thug that has no respect at all for the rule of law and order. And he should have been shot down like the dog that he is. They celebrated when Jonathan Jackson was killed.
Oh, wow.
Versus how those who went up into the halls of our Congress and cut up the way they cut up. And they all were pardoned by the president.
So in the in time, because this is not something that was taught in school. I didn't learn nothing about this till I was grown. And here's the picture we have, Jonathan, and that's the shotgun tied to the judge's head or his neck, blowing him off. Now,
if you go back and you listen to Tupac Amaru Shakur, he has a song titled "Soldier Story." And the chorus is, all he wanted to be was a soldier, all he wanted to be was a soldier like me. It's the story of Jonathan Jackson going up into that courthouse, holding the judge hostage, because what he was intending to do was to actually trade the judge and the prosecutor for George. You have to remember that George Jackson got one of the most unusual sentences ever given out by the American penal system. The brother was given 1 year to life for stealing some money out of a purse at a gas station.
Wow.
And he was ultimately killed by snipers who they accused his lawyer of smuggling a gun into him during one of their jailhouse visits. The gun was supposedly not discovered when they patted him down to go back into the prison yard. And their excuse for not finding the gun was the brother hid it in his afro.
What?
Yeah, that was the official reason. That's how they didn't find it. Yeah.
Lord have mercy. Now, all of these people got killed up. Everybody got shot by the police, right?
No, the prosecutor survived. The judge was killed, and there were 3 brothers. I want to say, was it? I had to look up his name. One of the brothers survived. There were 3 that were on trial. And he actually arms them when he goes into their courtroom. But one of them actually survived. One of the brothers survived. They made it actually to a van and were attempting to drive away. Clichette Domingo or something like that. One of them actually survived.
Wow. Now, is this the first time in our experience that Black people have done something like this, to go in there and take the judge and the prosecutor hostage?
As far as I know, yeah. You have to remember that when you're talking about this, you're talking about the late 1960s, the very late 1960s. Black folk have always had, for whatever reason, some inkling of hope, some idea that the American system at some point would be fair to them, would be just to them. This is a anecdotal moment of seeing a boy. They referred to him as the man child, losing all hope. He wanted his brother returned back home to his family. That's all he wanted. And that's what you're seeing right there.
Now, this was before Assata's jailbreak, or was this after?
This would have been before.
Before, okay. So as far as Black people, this is the first and the only time something like this has happened in our sojourn here in America from our end.
Like this going up into a courthouse, yeah. This is probably the first time. The case of Assata. Assata is actually in a medium to maximum security prison when she was broke out.
Now that's strange to be in a prison, but they walked in and walked her back out. Break us down. How the hell did they do that?
They didn't just walk in and walk her out. That's not what happened.
Go ahead, break it down.
Well, if you look at Assata's aunt's book, Evelyn Williams, Inadmissible Evidence, where she actually talks about what Assata went through in that prison. Evelyn Williams she writes about the last time that she saw Assata locked up. And she says that here I am trying to talk to her about the case, about her case. And she notices that Assata's not really paying attention to anything that she's saying. What she's actually doing is watching the movements of the prison guards, because they're in an area where you would be able to, how can I put this? Okay, when my uncles were in prison and they were incarcerated, you know this at one of the places they were incarcerated was the Mansfield Reformatory, where they filmed the Shawshank Redemption. We would go there on the weekend, and it was a different time. As you can tell from this photo, it's a different time that you would be able to get a gun, several guns, up into a courthouse. There were no metal detectors during that time, but we would go there and we would have a lunch with my uncles. It was our time to visit with them. So what you're looking at is what Asada's looking at is how are they moving? And she sees that there's a control panel where they basically buzz people in and out. Just the movements. And Evelyn Williams is going to write in her book. She says she looked up and looked in Asada's face and she's crying. And she knew. She said, this will be the last time that I will see her, probably alive. She knew something was up. The escape of her from what she's talked about, and she really doesn't say much about it, because according to her, there are people that if she told would be arrested and prosecuted to this very day for their role in it. What we do know is that a group of individuals headed by Mutulu Shakur, the gentleman who raised Tupac Amaru Shakur, you got to remember this was a Black Liberation Army operation. Somehow, and when I say somehow, we don't know who the parties were, but someone else was involved inside of that prison, because they were able to make it past 2 checkpoints. Okay, and of course, you know that they're checking ID. Somehow those IDs checked out. And they were able to get into the prison and were able to basically commandeer the control panel. Told the guy that if he didn't open those doors, that they were going to blow him away right there. They get Asada out, and they end up driving across a field. There was a elementary school. I want to say it was an elementary school that was adjacent to this prison. They put Asada in the trunk of the car. And of course, by this time, with a prison break, they shut off all the roads to that would lead away from the prison, because she's got to be in a car. Well, she is in the trunk of a car, but they never expected or thought that, and this takes us back to how we talk about white folk and white revolutionaries, especially these 60s and early 70s radicals, these hippies, who many people consider were out of their mind on acid and weed and things like that, and the free love movement. Well, the police waved through the car that had Asada in it because it was being driven by a white female.
Really?
Yeah, that's how she was able to escape out of the blockades that they had put up. They just waved that white woman straight through. The same way they let white folk walk out of Walmart with a bag full of stuff. They ain't been watching them. They was watching. They were looking for someone in an afro or something, a leather jacket, to be driving that car.
Right.
It was a white woman, and Asada is underground for years. It is one of the more interesting stories about it is that those who aided her, and keep in mind, Black folk kept this secret for years, so not many people knew where she was at. But there was one brother that many members of when I interviewed members of the Black Liberation Army for my dissertation, they said this brother, every time he came around, he was asking about Asada. Did they know where she was, and this and that? It was Al Sharpton, okay, who was trying to find out where she was at, and they never. And Evelyn Williams writes about this. It's one of the most beautiful moments in Black revolutionary literature. She says that the FBI and the CIA were after her. They're trying to figure out, and you got to remember, Asada was put at number 1 of the FBI's most wanted list. Evelyn knows that they're listening to her phone calls.
Right.
They would have people who would call her trying to sound like Asada to see if she would tip them off as to where she was at. And Evelyn Williams says, I never went for any of those fakes. And one morning, and this is years later, she says that her phone rings and there's this little small voice on the phone. And the voice basically says, "Hi, Auntie. Hi, Auntie. It's me, Asada."
Mm.
And she said, "Yeah, okay, try better. Try better next time. This don't even sound like Asada." And she says, "Auntie, it's me. It's me." She says, "Please." Said, "You know what? Check it out. If you're Asada, say something that only me and Asada know." And she says, she writes that Asada begins to recite a nursery rhyme that she would sing to her to put her to sleep as a child. And that's what convinced her that that was Asada. And she was, by this time, she was in Cuba.
Wow.
Hmm.
Interesting. And, you know, to be able to think of something like that and it actually works, what does that say about the mind of the individuals involved?
Something like what?
To go into a prison and get your person out and, you know, eventually get them to a different country.
It says the exact same thing that what we see right here in this photo, Jonathan Jackson. Desperate times require desperate measures. They're absolutely desperate to get her out for what it says. And you have to remember, what are the repercussions of doing this? Mutulu got out 2 years ago.
Mm.
And it was in many ways a mercy release because they didn't want him to die in there, so they would be responsible for burying him. Quite a few of the Black Liberation Army and Black Power figures. You know, you talk about, we look at the 1960s with such nostalgia, but these brothers and sisters missed the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, the 2000s, the 2010s, and the 2020s.
Mm.
William Lee Brent died in Cuba. Asada's still exiled in Cuba. She can't come back.
Mm.
They're still after a grandmother.
Wow.
Because when we saw the United States reestablish diplomatic relations with the island of Cuba, the first thing that Chris Christie's fat ass asked for was Asada to be returned.
Mm-hmm.
And the Cuban people refused that, said no.
Mm. And I'm glad they had the guts to say no.
But I mean, you're talking about the only real opposition that America has historically had in the Western Hemisphere.
Mm. Wow. I want us to look at this slave ledger. Let's see, I think it's this one. Yeah. At this slave ledger of William James Smith, 1844 to 1854. And so we see all the names. Emily was worth $435 in 1844. And it just goes on, and every dollar value represents a Black life that was enslaved. When we look at the value that our ancestors who were enslaved brought to America or brought to these slave masters, and there's no way of actually paying for that. But what does that say about the American fabric when you're dealing with labor? We know that you're a union person. So what does that say with labor and business? Has anything changed?
That the most essential factor in the building of the American empire has been the labor of Africans, the labor of workers. Has anything changed? No. The only thing that has really changed is quite simply that the worker has largely been replaced in this nation. I can talk about this nation in particular. The worker has been replaced by automation, but it's all aimed at the exact same thing, and it's aimed at the extraction of wealth. But it also, when I look at these ledgers, and I've seen a lot of these ledgers, for me, it makes the the resistance for reparations
Mhm.
inexcusable because you have this written down. This
Mhm.
isn't a guess. And
Mhm.
from the top of the system to the bottom of the system, I mean, when you think about why are they keeping these ledgers so religiously?
Mhm.
Because they have insurance claims to make. If you look at Ira Berlin's great book, Slaves Without Masters, Ira Berlin makes this very reverberating point. He says to be black and free in the South meant that you went from having one slave master to a South full of them who were all determined to keep you in your place. You actually, and we often don't think about it this way, and this ties into Jefferson as well. Jefferson said that he would not release his because at least he could provide a veneer of element, a layer of protection for them. Jane, who was worth $500, if some hurt or harm came to Jane, there would be a court case because you damaged someone's property. Not just because not because she's a human, but you have damaged their property the same way that if you went in and shot somebody's cow, somebody's whatever livestock that they were making money off of. So that was one of the inducements to not kill them because you would be sued.
Mm. Now, I've heard a white person make a similar argument that because the slaves were property, they had it better than the poor white person because at least the slave had a slave house. The poor white person didn't have no house. The slave ate.
Yeah, but
Have
no,
no food.
but see, I would push back on that because quite
Mhm.
simply, when you're talking about the development of American capitalism, you're talking about a system that is going to try and extract wealth from each and every person, everybody that it can. Now, their argument is quite simply that owners had to provide food, shelter, clothing for. Now, let's not recreate this thing and make it seem like they were going down to Macy's.
Mhm.
They weren't. The only difference, and this is sort of one of the wages of being addicted to whiteness that you're going to come across is quite simply that these white folk took pride that they weren't slaves, that they weren't owned, and actually got on the same team as those wealthy white folk, landholding white folk who were running plantations and worked as if they were going to receive some ancillary financial benefit, which they never did, for cracking down on these niggas. So we can't lose sight of that psychologically white folk got a boost like they get a boost right now. The boost
Mhm.
that they get, well, I ain't black. Well, you voted and now your Medicaid getting ready to be cut off. Okay.
Mhm.
Your benefits are going to be curtailed, but you still get that boost. LBJ said that if you get a poor white man, somebody look down upon, hell, he'll empty his pockets for you.
Mhm.
That reigns true to this very day. But the only major difference between poor white folk and enslaved black folk was at the end of a workday. Well, number one, white folk were so haughty they wouldn't work in the same role as black folk. They would have been in a different field, picking the same damn cotton. But at the end of the day, they got to go home.
Mm.
Now, what did they go home to? They went home to a dilapidated shanty that they had to pay the plantation owner for because he owned their housing. It was a precursor to what we know as a company town. So
Mm.
psychologically, yeah, you're one step above being a slave, but financially you're destitute. And if that crop doesn't come in, if something happens, your labor is no longer needed. Kind of the exact same thing that we're seeing right now. That white folk are losing their jobs on these farms. They're losing their farms and what have you. They're in a bad state. at least for enslaved black folk, they would have to be materially provided for out of hope that next year we'd be able to turn a profit on this plantation. And you got to remember that this idea of the concentration of wealth, although it's ludicrous and absurd right now, that's not new in America. These men, they ran 12, 15 plantations at one time. It wasn't no one-stop shop going on. It's why we have the battle. That's why we refer to Kansas as bloody Kansas, because the sons of slave owners wanted Kansas to be a slave state so that they could bring their plantation businesses there, spreading the cotton kingdom.
Wow. Okay. And we're going to look at this other quick video and come back and talk about it.
Listen, man, we're just here to enjoy the show.
Why are you doing that? We're just trying to make sure it's accurate. What's accurate?
The event. I thought you could dress up. Okay, so where do we need to go to?
So how did 30 seconds end? Like, what the fuck?
I promise you, they probably never had this happen before. Hey, yo, Brody, that looks like some more like medieval armor than anything.
It's civil.
I'm not gonna lie, bro. I'm a Civil War historian. Like, I know all the drip that they had.
He did too. Where's the video going?
Oh, this is for the History Channel. Okay. Do you know what time the auction block starts?
They didn't have an auction block today.
Fuck. I was trying to be the first overall pick.
First overall pick.
One time to leave before I send you to jail.
Whoa. Why do we have to leave?
You're in chains. What are we doing here, man?
We're with the History Channel.
Why is this?
Oh, this was just the drip back then.
I'm sorry.
This was the drip back then. We just want to be as historically accurate as possible.
That's not.
Yeah, it is.
It's not funny. It's not cute. It's not okay. This is not okay.
But this is history.
We have good, bad, and ugly.
Was invited. We don't know who you are or where you came from.
So anybody that came is. It said anybody could come. Yeah, that is definitely not historically accurate.
He's not with us.
He must have watched Django or something. That's make believe.
No, sir.
I thought it was against the law for a nigga to be on a horse.
Excuse me?
Oh, can we not use it?
I'll let you tell him that.
Yeah, you tell him that, just like you said it.
What the hell?
I'm scared of horses.
How you guys doing? Hi.
So tell him what you just told us.
Well, first off, what do you identify as? No, like, are you Caucasian, Asian, Blasian?
A certain period of clothes that you got to have on. For instance, sandals and stuff, you can't do that out here.
Oh, no. All right. This cotton's already processed, you know. The cotton gin already got it. So I couldn't find any unpicked cotton. That was kind of hard.
In the bag.
I hope y'all are cleaning that up.
Oh, yeah, we're definitely going to pick it. You know I'm going to pick it. Like, I'm down to be on ammunition duty. You know, I'm down to be a rifleman. I'm down to work the field. I'm down to be in the house. I would prefer to be in the house, though. Oh, I'm from Chirac. I know how to use a gun.
Yeah, but still, we don't know that. They don't play this crap.
Where did you get the chains? Walmart?
No.
Party City.
Where are you folks from? My daddy's balls.
I'm from the Candyland Plantation.
That's great.
I'm property of Calvin Candy.
Where are you from?
I'm trying to tell you, Mississippi.
Tell me the truth.
West of the Mississippi.
Why are you scared to speak the truth?
Okay, do you want me to break character?
Oh, is that a character? Is that what you're doing?
Well, I mean, aren't we all in character?
Wait, is this going on Facebook Live? Because I can't be on there.
Uh-oh, too late.
No.
Uh-oh, too
No.
late. Too late, buddy. Uh-oh. Now they're getting into real character, huh?
Master,
No.
stop.
Oh,
Stop.
this is awesome.
Here, if we pick faster, he might put up his phone.
Make sure you pick up the plastic. You get a fine for littering.
Yes, sir. Whatever you say, Master. Wade in the water. Wade in the water, children. Wait, why did that police officer pull up in a car? Cars weren't invented yet.
What's going on, guys?
Hey, man, we're just here to enjoy the show, and they just don't like our outfits. I think they're just mad because we're more historically accurate than all of them.
Y'all can do whatever you want on the roadway. If they ask you to leave, it's private property, man.
They were trying to get people to fight with them and stuff. I don't know.
What?
Is this private?
Why would we get people to fight with us? We're slaves.
Public highway.
All right, Master. Thank you.
I'm nobody's master.
Sorry, Master.
There's only one master, and that's God.
And then you. That's how the hierarchy goes. That lady over there was kind of dissing my cotton picking skills. Can I go like show her what's up? Because I can pick 12 ounces per second. Because you know I have the fastest cotton shuttle time in the world. Oh, ma'am, can you do me a favor? Think you just like karate chop elbow this?
Yeah, right.
I'm free! Nigga, every nigga for his own.
So these brothers just showed up Whoops. They just showed up at the enactment, back in the day enactment, and they were the only slaves to show up. Now, the white folks there didn't want them there. Definitely didn't want them showing any blackness. But this, as a comedy thing that the black folks did, and the white folks' reaction was their real reaction. They didn't know that the black folks were showing up. Why is it, Doc, that in the little video we saw, the white folks didn't want to acknowledge, even though they were replaying or acting during that time? They want to act like it's not exist. It didn't happen.
Well, but see, to this day, when you ask even some historians what was the cause of the U.S. Civil War, they don't mention slavery. They mention the idea of states' rights, a state's right to be able to determine, its destiny and the way that it'll go. So there's a historical basis for that. But many of these reenactments, these people are history buffs, and many of them avoid even the idea of the concept of race. And it's just what it is. Now we from the way that we look at history and where our lens is set at, which is set on race, many of them are more concerned with dress. Is the dress authentic? Is it this? Is it that? One of the interesting things that happened to me before, it didn't actually happen to me, but I told these fools, because there is where I work at, we're actually on top of a plantation, the Alta Vista plantation. Yeah. And right next to it is the Oleendo plantation. The entirety of Waller County, where I work at, was actually owned by two brothers, the Kirby brothers. And you're talking about owning tens of thousands of acreage. They were running 8 different plantations just in the same county. On the Oleendo plantation, they do a Civil War reenactment. And some of my students who history majors, they came up with this idea that they were going to go over there and they were going to volunteer to participate in the reenactment. I told them, do not go over there. It is not what you think. They went. So that Monday they come back and they was like, Doc, you was right. So we went out there and they said, oh yeah, y'all can participate. We got costumes and everything for y'all. Told them they was going to be slaves, and they was going to give them the sign for them to run across the field, and they was going to chase them down on horseback and tackle them and brutalize them. So, these people are history buffs, and unless I know you, I think that all Americans, black, red, white, yellow, have a tinge of racial bias in them. I could see some people being uncomfortable with what those brothers did, because they're bringing to the forefront an element of that time that they know was wrong, was morally wrong, yet at the exact same time, they want to behave and to act as if they were soldiers during that time, if that makes sense, without the tinge without getting the stink or the spirit of racist whites on them. I don't think you can do it, but they try. Matter of fact, I had a cousin who was in town visiting this week, and he participates in those Civil War reenactments. He participates in one in Oklahoma, where it was one of the few battles where the majority of people who fought were indigenous people and African Americans.
Mm.
Yeah.
Did you ever go and see them do their thing?
No, you know what? I'm actually going to plan, because he came here to visit someone, but he went to he wanted to go to the Buffalo Soldiers Museum. He plans on somehow becoming a Buffalo soldier while he's here. But yeah, I'm reading his text message, July 10th. He wrote, "Fort Gibson is where we usually meet and practice drill, manual of arms, and firing infield musket. Way different from today's equipment and tactics." So yeah, yeah, they're into this. Not sure if you can see. I'll try and hold it up. That's him and I guess some of the other soldiers right there. And this is another photo of them. I guess all the participants or what have you.
Wow.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. So I want to say it's October or November.
Mm-hmm.
You know, coming up. So yeah, it's the Battle of Honey Springs reenactment near Checkaw, Oklahoma. Yeah. Yeah. So
Wow.
I know that there are people who are really, really into that and really get involved in it.
I'm going to read to you something James Baldwin wrote, or what he said. He said, "I'm stating every Negro in the country and every white man knows that the American dream is at the expense of the American Negro. The future of the Negro in this country is precisely as bright or as dark as the future of the country. It is entirely up to the American people whether or not they agree going to face, deal with, and embrace this stranger whom they have maligned for so long. What I am trying to say is that a journey is not a journey unless you are willing to risk everything. The American people have to go, find out in their hearts, why was it necessary to have a nigger in the first place? Because I'm not your nigger, I'm a man." What would be the answer to that, Doc? Why is it necessary to have a nigger in the first place?
I couldn't answer that. You would have to ask white folk why it would be necessary to have a nigga. And see, this is sort of my thing. And I love Baldwin. You know, I love his writings, and as you was reading it, I closed my eyes so I could shut off everything except for my listening skills. But my question would be quite simply, can we indict all white folk for the creation of niggas? Did all white folk have a hand in the creation of niggas? And I would argue no, because they're not. There's a lot of white folk in here who have no power, who have no agency, no more power and no more agency than we actually have. Now, do they get on board because they see that as the easiest way to access power and to survive? I believe that's true. But now, why do you need the creation of a nigga? I would argue that when you're dealing with a capitalist society, you're going to need the creation of a poor, low-skilled, almost worker class to serve at the behest of the elite. One of the things that it's turned into kind of a guilty pleasure for me, these YouTube cop videos. You see black people acting a fool. And here I'm sitting up here watching this black woman just wow out on the police. And I pay attention. I'm like, okay, where because I'm trying to read the name on the police cruiser, because you going to jail. Okay, and I just need to figure out what city this is. 8 times out of 10, it's somewhere in Florida,
Mm.
like Palm Beach.
Mm.
And I'm like, ain't that a rich, wealthy, white area, Palm Beach? And then it dawns on me, but who's serving these white folk? And it's some poor people probably living in a housing project somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how they're able to eke out some form of a subsistence. So in many ways, the idea of the creation of the nigger has to be placed at the foot of wealthy and powerful white folk.
Mm-hmm.
And right next to that question, or placing that question at their feet, I would ask them, why did you find it necessary to create the white, ignorant, poor bigot? Because in many ways, both of them are running on similar rails, and really in many ways reinforcing the existence of the other.
Mm. Wow. When no, we'll go to another video. I'm gonna come back with another question to you about James Baldwin. Because it's like this, right?
Mm-hmm.
I kind of think that James Baldwin, Douglas, and at a time Du Bois,
Frederick Douglass.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
They didn't live in reality. They didn't live in reality. They lived in a mysterious or a fake theology of how America is, right? And it's like with Du Bois, I can see he finally met reality. He finally met reality. And when you told us last week that after reading King's speech, he went to the bed and died, that just really clarified to me he met reality.
Yeah,
he understood the reality.
But if you're looking at a figure like Du Bois, you got to remember Du Bois is from Great Barrington, Massachusetts. He talks about being the only Black student in his entire school. So, in and of itself, that's going to skew his viewpoint. Douglas, although Douglas was enslaved, you got to remember Douglas becomes the leading orator. Him and William Lloyd Garrison, they're the leading orators of the anti-slave movement. This is a internationally renowned Black man. There's some privilege that comes along with that. One of the greatest.
What?
Say that again.
What privilege came along with that?
Okay, tell me who else was after Lincoln was assassinated? Who else that was Black was invited to the Oval Office to welcome in the new president, Andrew Johnson? Because it was at that point that Douglas went up to Johnson, and this is kind of going with when you're talking about living in an alternate reality. Douglas goes up to Andrew Johnson. Keep in mind, Johnson was Abraham Lincoln's running mate in the election of 1864, and he gets killed in 1865. Douglas goes up to Johnson to welcome him to the Oval Office, to the highest ranking station in the nation, arguably the world. He extends his hand, and Douglas writes that Andrew Johnson looked at him, and he said, "Do you think that I would ever stoop so low as to shake the hand of a nigger?" What other Black folk would be invited to the Oval Office? Douglas is the most notable Negro in America, bar none, during that time. There's a reason that he's there and other people are not there.
But he wasn't even accepted though. So what value did we get from that nigga being in the White House?
He's not. No. It's not value that we're getting. It's his worldview and the privilege that he's afforded. Douglas ain't strong. Douglas ain't missing no meals. Douglas is not in some field working. Keep in mind, Douglas ends up with a white woman before it's all said and done.
Yeah, but it didn't produce nothing for us. It didn't make us no easier.
I didn't say it produced anything for us. What I said is when you're looking at how the situation that he's sitting in is very similar to the situation that we're going to see Baldwin sitting in. When Baldwin goes to Europe and is writing over in Europe, does Giovanni's Room and all of those different writings, which are not as powerful as the ones that he did in America, like Go Tell It on the Mountain and what have you. The fact that you're a black man in Europe writing, going to these parties, going to being invited here because people want to meet Baldwin, they want to shake hands with Baldwin. Same thing with Douglas. Douglas is being invited into places. When he gave that that vaunted speech, "What to the slave is the 4th of July."
Right.
That was in Rochester, New York, I think, in front of, and it was delivered to a white female political group. There's some privilege for him that comes along with that. Now, that privilege doesn't trickle down and affect black folk at all, but for him, it's going to skew how he looks at the world. You ain't as hungry as those in the field. And you're having these conversations with figures like Garrison. So you get a chance to see what white folk actually are thinking. You get to interact with them versus some field Negro who's just like, I hate all them motherfuckers.
So now this is new because I didn't know that speech that he gave to white women. Now they didn't even have the power to vote. So that was what? That was a waste of goddamn time. They couldn't do shit for you.
No. But you got to remember what Douglas is doing is advancing the cause of black rights, because black folk can't vote then either. Black folk don't have the right to vote when he delivered that speech. Not black men. And black men they had a right to vote. Black women didn't have the right to vote.
Right.
And you have to remember that Douglas, and this once again goes back to Douglas's his surroundings. Douglas publicly comes out and says that he's a feminist, that he is totally for women's suffrage, for women's rights and what have you, even though he can't even vote. So that's why he's talking to that group of white female voters, because they're in many ways going in the same direction. They can't vote and black people can't vote. So there is a quote unquote somewhat of an alliance there. Now that alliance will fall apart with the 15th Amendment, when black men in general are given the right to vote over women. White women they laid their religion to the side as a result of that, and showed how they really felt about your black ass. Because in many ways, the 15th Amendment is saying to women that we don't care what type of education you have, what you can do, how smart you are. The smartest white woman is beneath the most uneducated, boorish Negro. And that's a hard thing for them to accept.
So then, my thinking is definitely right. They lived in a different reality,
yes,
than the real reality. And then that makes them, but that makes them ineffective to really beat the enemy, because they make dumb calculations like, we'll wear them down with our love, that dumb bullshit like that ain't gonna never wear them down, because they don't give a darn about you loving them. When I understood that with the Montgomery bus boycott, now you correct me if I'm wrong, but with the Montgomery bus boycott, they didn't win that in the street. They won it in the Supreme Court. And these dudes down there in Alabama, they were like, we not having that. We don't give a damn. They could bust the damn bus company to be broke, but they still wasn't going to allow no nigga to be riding on the front of their bus. They meant segregation forever, whether it caused them to be broke, whether it caused white businesses to go out of business. They wasn't integrating shit until the Supreme Court said, yeah, you better.
Yeah, I mean, but you have to remember something that you just said in your statement reminds me of 1954 when you have the Brown v. Board decision. In the states are ordered to desegregate with all deliberate speed. And Southern governors are going to use that phraseology with all deliberate speed. It's not about quickness or swiftness. It's about being deliberate. So they delay doing that. And months after Brown, you have this reverberating, awesome umbrella statement coming from the South, from Southern political leaders. And it's called the Southern Manifesto. Segregation today, segregation tomorrow, segregation forever. And so the following year, December 1st, 1955, you have Rosa Parks being arrested, and the Montgomery bus boycott was on. The thing that broke, and most historians would agree with this, the thing that broke the back of white Montgomery's back had nothing to do with the U.S. Supreme Court decision. And many people say that it was the tone and the tenor of what elite Alabamians, especially from Montgomery, were saying that led the U.S. Supreme Court to rule in the way that it did, that segregation must go on the buses of Montgomery, the same way it said that racial segregation was doing irreparable harm to the minds of Black children as a result of Kenneth and Mamie Clark's black doll, white doll experiment the year before. And you got to remember, we have a 1954 Brown decision, that's Brown 1. And the following year, the U.S. Supreme Court revisits it, and they do Brown 2, which basically says we need it to be done now. And of course, we had Adam Clayton Powell Jr. there, the baddest Negro in America, doing what he does. But the thing that broke the back of the Montgomery bus boycott was Black folk were no longer shopping and spending their money in the downtown stores anymore, because they were largely having to ride the buses to get downtown to spend their money. Now, the question becomes, because think about the timing. The boycott starts December 1st. So you miss Christmas there. And then you know the Negro is gonna spend beyond what his budget is. He'll put shit on layaway to be able to put on a good Christmas, to get a new Easter suit. So you had 12 months of no Negro dollar. So when Christmas is coming for December of 1956, the following year, then you're going to have the U.S. Supreme Court in bus segregation fall. And a great argument could be made that they paved the way for Black folk to be able to get on those buses because they needed them in them downtown stores so they didn't go bankrupt. They couldn't miss no 2 Christmases without the Negro dollar. You know, Black folk will spend everything they got, especially if it allows them to put a white label on their chest or on their butt.
Wow. We're going to go ahead to the next video. I did have more to say on that, but I want to get to the next video, because the thing that I see that those who don't live in the reality, they misjudge white folks. They believe that there's going to be this moral reckoning, that they're going to come to their senses and say, I'm going to stop doing wrong. I'm going to stop doing wrong by the niggas, and I'm going to treat the niggas right.
Yeah, but
it's just not reality.
But see, the thing is that I think that what you're talking about is exposure and being able to talk to white folk in an up close and personal setting. That's what Black leadership, Black political leadership has been able to do. But one of the things that I would argue that they have never been very good at is judging bullshit. Because there's one thing for people to say to your face, oh yeah, you know, I disagree with these atrocities and things like this. The very thing that Du Bois is talking about at the beginning of The Souls of Black Folk. How white folk come up and they approach you in a half hesitant sort of way. And instead of asking you, how does it feel to be a problem? They say, well, I knew an excellent colored man in this town, or I fought in Mechanicsville. Okay. I think that exposure, if you're not careful, if you're not able to reset yourself, you believe that and tend to forget. And keep in mind, it's sort of the exact same thing that happened in this past election when Black women were locked in their echo chambers. Other Black women were talking to white women, and they were, yes, we're going to Kamala. We're going to Kamala. But when the white folk went in the privacy of that voting booth, what did they vote for? And there's something to be said for your argument. Black folk who have private conversations with white folk, and they get to hear how they really feel in private, they often forget that private voice is muted by the expectations of a larger white society when they go in public.
Definitely. So we're going to watch this next video and come back and talk about it.
Sir, I am a Navy man. Where I come from, there are no oceans, only dirt farms and ornery mules.
Doc Matt is gonna bring in another family where the kids work too.
Oh! My kids go to school. Now go on before you're late.
No self-respecting Navy man makes a living driving mules. That's what I want to be, sir.
A Navy master, Daddy.
Yes, sir.
Make me a promise.
Sir,
Don't end up like me.
A third hydrogen bomb remains lost at sea.
You made it.
Then you're watching. We're going to be Navy divers. You bottom suckers are not meant to observe them. Avert your eyes!
Whether I help you or not doesn't matter. You're gonna fail anyway.
I won't. I can't.
Why do you want this so badly?
Because they said I couldn't have it. He said not one word since we left your crew.
He's just real scared for you.
Alex, now. Good flange work, Rourke. Almost there. Thank you, Master Chief.
I'll come back. Help mow the hay.
Don't ever come back here.
You let go before I relieve you. You failed my course right now. Got it, swim champ?
You gonna go too?
No.
Permission to relieve the man below, Master Chief.
What are you, Cookie? Some kind of goddamn hero?
And when it gets hard, and it will.
I'm a master diver! And maybe you'll remember that next time you imply we got anything in common. Do you mean, Cookie?
Don't quit on me.
If you want to flunk me, flunk me. But don't punish him for being decent to me.
Chief, I need help down here. Stay put, Red Diver. Help's on the way.
You can't dive that deep. I'm ready. Let me go.
I'm out of here. We gotta get out of here. She's going down. Come back here. Get back here. I ain't dying. I'm out of here. The President of the United States of America takes great pleasure in presenting the Navy and Marine Corps Medal of Heroism to Machinist Mate First Class Dylan Rourke, whereby Petty Officer Rourke, with apparent disregard for his own life, did at Bayonne, New Jersey, save the life of Petty Officer Timothy Douglas Iser. Think you deserve to be here, don't you? Think you're as good as they are? How about me, Cookie? You better than me?
You're damn right I am.
You're the one, aren't you?
But if I win, you ship out tonight. Deal? Deal. He's gonna pass. Yesterday he scored a 94 on his final. Sir, he don't have to be that fast tomorrow. All he's got to do is complete the exercise.
How's Daddy doing? Is he up and around again?
What did he say to you to make you try so hard?
Be the best.
Well, you are.
Topside, blue diver. I'm still waiting on my tool bag.
Just don't show up tomorrow. Pappy ain't gonna let you pass.
What about you, Chief?
Give it up, Cookie. You go to shock down there, you might not wake up. Come on now, this ain't worth dying for.
My name is Wilson May, second class. Carl Michelle. I'm a Navy diver.
If I walk these 12 steps today,
Navy diver, stand up. Leave him.
reinstate me to active duty.
Come on.
Give me my career back.
2,
Let me finish it
3,
and go home in peace.
4,
I have spent most of my life in the Navy trying only to succeed.
5, 6,
We have many traditions.
7,
In my career, I've experienced most of them.
8,
However, I wouldn't be here today if it weren't for our greatest tradition of all.
9. The Navy diver is not a fighting man. He is a salvage expert. 10. If it's lost underwater, he finds it. If it's sunk, he brings it up. If it's in the way, he moves it. 11. If he's lucky, he will die young 200 feet beneath the waves, for that is the closest he will ever get to being a hero. At ease.
That
Chris, you got
Carl Bashir, brother. The physical struggle, the fight to force our way into rooms, to prove our worth, and to claim your place within the American most storied institutions. And that's exactly what Brother Carl did, fought his way into the Navy to become a master diver. Doc, the position between the father and the son, as he wrote on the radio, a son never forgets. And then he also showed the point of looking at his father's hands. What did Carl Bashir's father mean to him?
He was his source of inspiration. He was in many ways his North Star. When I think back about my own life, my father and we're not the same people. My father, he's from Stone Mountain, Georgia. He's an old country boy. He eats pig feet, hog maws, chitlins, and he's going to eat that to the day that he dies, I would imagine. I'm not like him. I'm more urban. He worked in a steel mill. I worked in a steel mill for a short period of time, but I used my mind to provide for me and my family. Yet my father is the only model of manhood that I have. the only model of fatherhood that I have. And it's expressed in a different way as far as earning money, but at my core, you know, and this is, and you know this very well. You know, I would open up pretty much every show that we had that I'm Catherine and Viola Jones's baby boy. I was closer to my mom than I am, you know, still to this day to my father. Yet at the exact same time, it's his example. It's things that he showed me, the things that, you know, about diligence, about timeliness, about sacrificing for your family, that I don't know any other way to be. And that's just what it is. That's who Carl Brashear's father was. The idea of don't you come back here ever. In the story of Carl Brashear, I think that we often misplace what we're actually seeing, because it's in many ways the standard American immigrant story, where you have these people who come to this nation and they work diligently and they work hard and they pour everything that they have into their children, with the idea that their children will be able to engage this society, this nation, this land, and will become a success that they could have never achieved in their lives, that many of them could have never imagined. Just because our people are not getting off a boat in Ellis Island doesn't mean that that initial generation or two generations of a story is any different. When you consider that the institution of chattel slavery doesn't end until 1865, you would put that next generation coming in here around 1860, 1885, 1890. You're going to have the great migration of Black folk migrating out of the South, the Deep South, right around World War I. That's almost the exact same periodization that you're going to see with the Irish, the Polish, the Russians, and what have you. The only difference when we begin to talk about forcing our way into a system, the only difference between our positionality and theirs is that in the post-World War I period, you see the white Anglo-Saxon Protestant population understanding that numbers matter, and they extend a larger umbrella that's going to capture these European immigrants under it. Black folk didn't have that option to go into the system. So our path and our story is a different one from what we see them doing.
Wow. So, Doc, in the video, we saw two critical figures: the white officer, who is a hostile gatekeeper, and the senior Black chief, who becomes the mentor. In these powerful American institutions, be it military, academia, or corporate America, how essential is it that we have for Black folks that Mr. Chief figure? Is the success of one Black man often entirely dependent on the intervention of another Black man who was the first to break through the door?
Okay, wait a minute. Can you back up to the first part of that question?
Is the success of one Black man often entirely dependent on the intervention of another Black man?
Wait a minute. There was something you said before that.
Oh, let's see. Corporate America, is it essential that you have that chief figure? Do we need that first one through the door figure?
Okay, the first one through the door figure. So do subsequent Navy divers, do they need Carl Brashear? I don't know if they necessarily needed a Carl Brashear, because who did he have? And he still was able to overcome and succeed. Do I think that a Carl Brashear could serve as a model of inspiration during tough times if you needed it? Certainly. Do I think that Brashear making it through paved the way or made it easier for those who came behind him? Emphatically not. Emphatically not. There's something about the stink of negativity and badness that allows it to stick to Black folk. and success and being excellent at what you do, you're looked at as the exception to the rule of Black folk really can't get it done.
Mm. Mm. So what about in academia in corporate America? You don't think that they still don't need that figure?
Well, I mean, that figure can serve as an inspiration, but when you're talking about academia and you're talking about corporate America, you're dealing with a different beast, I would argue.
Okay.
And what I mean by that is in business and academia, everyone knows that the secret to advancing, if that's what you want to do, if you want to become one of the quote unquote stars,
Mm-hmm.
you have to hitch yourself to a winning horse.
Mm-hmm.
When you look at a figure, and I'm sure if you watch MSNBC, you've seen his brother Eddie Gallard.
Mm-hmm.
Eddie Gallard was Cornel West's TA. Okay. That's how he moved up through those ranks. When West went somewhere, he went with him. Okay. There's so many examples of that. When you're talking about the idea, and I'm just dealing with Black academicians, the idea of cronyism and having, people in your inner circle paves the way for things that you normally would not be able to get done on your own. And I'll just say it that way. So if you're in their inner circle, they'll help you. If you're not, they ain't.
Wow. Okay.
And I think that goes for business as well.
Okay. So for me, one of the most powerful moments is the incredible speech at the end where the Navy diver is defined not as a fighting man, but as a salvage expert.
Salvage expert.
Someone who finds what is lost and brings it up what's sunk. Mm-hmm. Is that one of the most perfect metaphors for the role of Black men have been forced to play in this country?
I don't know if it's a perfect metaphor. I think that and I love that final speech.
Mm-hmm.
But what I think the role of Black men in America has been is that we have been tools. We've been the beast of burdens. Mm-hmm. to accomplish things that benefited others in this nation immeasurably. Going back to the arrival of the first 13 in 1619, they're not owned by any individual. They're owned by Jamestown. They're owned by the colony. And they will work for anyone in the colony who will pay them. Now, when you consider that, that's been the role of Black men in this nation. We're workers. We were brought here to be workers. And now that we're no longer as a nation in a manufacturing economy, we're more of a service and information economy now. And AI is knocking that information part out the box. Now you really don't have a role or a utility for Black men. And that's going to get worse. It's going to get much worse because where will we work at? The steel mills are closed down. The automotive industries, they've gone to mechanization. So these pockets of leftover employment opportunities, because you know that white folk divvy them up amongst themselves first, especially when you're talking about the unions and what have you. Where do black men fit in at? And a very strong argument could be made that you don't fit in at all anymore, that the game has in many ways passed you by.
Mm. Mm. For Black leaders, not Malcolm X, I will guess the New Testament Malcolm X, Martin Luther King, different civil rights leaders, were they the salvage experts of America's democratic project? consistently called upon to find the nation's lost ideas and raise them from the depths of its hypocrisy.
I mean, I like that, but I believe that that's the role of everyone that is the poor and the downtrodden, the outsiders. That's always been your role, to hold up America and look at what your professed ideals are and look at what you're doing with those ideals. You've not allowed America to be America. One of the things that you can kind of set your watch on in regards to this nation is quite simply that whoever ends up in power ultimately becomes, through their worldview, through their actions, through their speech, the very individuals that they work to overthrow. You see it almost immediately when you look at the founding of this nation. Here, this nation is founded on the principles that Jefferson writes, where he's talking about, we had to throw off the yoke of Britain. We will not be the slaves of Britain. Now, if you consider Britain to be slave owners and you're throwing off that yoke and you successfully throw off that yoke, did that yoke fly in the air and then fall right back over on your shoulders? Because you never ceased being a slave owner. You just wanted all the profits that were coming off of slave labor. So that's going to always, once again, be the role of the disenfranchised, the poor and the downtrodden. And I don't care what social movement that you look at, that's what they're talking about. The idea of these are the ideals that you professed. And look at how you're acting.
Right.
And the response to that is going to almost always be from the power brokers, will then overthrow us. And that's what, I think it was Lincoln who said that the best renewal for a democracy is rebellion, because it forces people to go back and look at what the original blueprints were for this thing. Now, as to if you can look at that with a unbiased, non-judgmental eye, that's a whole nother question. And that's the one that I don't think that people can do.
Okay. So when we look at the character and his ultimate recognition for the medal for heroism, for saving a life, in a nation that has often framed Black masculinity as a threat, how radical is the act of redefining a Black hero, not as a warrior, but as a savior, a builder, and a restorer? What power lies in that portrayal?
Well, I mean, it's all about definitions and how you want to view a person. To paint Black folk as, for me, it would be revolutionary to paint Black folk as just human, let alone being a savior, anyone's savior or what have you. Let's just start with making us human. But if you can get to the point where Black folk could be looked at as almost being messianic, that's almost turning the world upside down. That here you have the lowest, the poorest, and the downtrodden being looked at as saviors. Come on, that's revolutionary.
Definitely. And do you think that if we saw that more, if we had more movies like that, that it will make a dent in the problems that we face?
No, because the contrary messages and evidence that you have is so overwhelmingly towards the other way. No, I don't see that. That would be the equivalent of what was the long-term impact of Malcolm X? Talking about Spike Lee's adaptation of the autobiography of Malcolm X. If people wore X hats. When was the last time you saw somebody with an X hat on?
Long time.
Yeah. I mean, so when you're really talking about being born into a world where the Black image has been denigrated, where Black men are actually feared but not just white folk, but also black women and some black men.
All right, we're going to move to our last video. In this one, we're going to look at the economic struggle, the relentless pursuit of a better life that defines the experience of so many black men and fathers in this country. So let's check it out. A very powerful scene.
$5, I left my wallet upstairs.
Let me run up and grab that for you, Mr. Brown.
No, I gotta be at Cal Bank at 4 and I'm late. I'll pay you back, huh?
Five is good.
5 is lovely, thank you.
Wear a shirt today. Being the last day.
But wear one tomorrow, though, okay? Because tomorrow's going to be your first day. If you'd like to work here as a broker. Would you like that, Chris?
Yes, sir.
Was it as easy as it looked?
No, sir. No, sir, it wasn't.
Oh, Chris. I almost forgot.
This part of my life, this little part, is called happiness.
All right.
When you went to church to look at Jesus.
So there we have Will Smith playing Chris Gardner. Now, Will says, this little part of my life, this part is called happiness. It's not winning the lottery. It's not fame. It's the moment he secures a job. Doc, what does it say about the Black experience in America when the pursuit of happiness, that grand phrase from the Declaration, is so often distilled down to the fundamental, desperate pursuit of a steady paycheck?
What it says is quite simply the floor of the Black existence, and I would expand that to the floor of marginalized groups, poor folk, especially poor folk like Black folk who are from a disassembled community. That floor is damn near sitting in hell. So much that a mere job would alleviate so many of your problems, a regular job. And we're not talking about a heavenly job. We're talking about some place that you can go and bust your ass and be paid for doing it. Something that we know as Black men we do on a constant basis, so much to the point that we die before anybody else in our families. So it says a lot about how low that floor is and really how small that margin of error actually is. One misstep, and it doesn't even have to be a misstep, just a unlucky break, a denial of an opportunity. Think about if Gardner had not been offered that job. He's leaving up out of there with $2 and gotta make that work. And that's a common situation for so many of our people. And it's one of the things that makes it so difficult for me to know that there are people out here who could say yes to help someone and they choose to say no because they consider that shit amusing.
Exactly. When he gets the job, Chris doesn't shout. He can't even really smile. He's fighting back the tears, trying to maintain his composure in that office. Could you speak to the pressure on Black men to mask their emotions, both their pain during the struggle and their elation in victory, to remain composed, non-threatening in a predominantly white spaces?
You have to always maintain your frame. I don't care what it is. If it's a good time, if it's a bad time, if you're happy or if you're sad, because regardless of what it is that you do, it is going to be painted negatively. If you're happy, did you see how he acted when, he got up and started dancing and, when you're down, when it doesn't go your way, and if you dare express yourself, well, I thought he was going to kill everyone in here, and it's the stifling, the bottling up of emotions that Black men have to do, and I would, just being honest with you, I would say that Black women have to do this as well.
Mm-hmm.
That you got to hold your frame, because to not hold your frame means disastrous things, like not being able to pay your mortgage or your rent, especially in a situation where we're underpaid, overworked, have other people who are relying on us. And I'm not just talking about kids, I'm talking about parents, brothers and sisters who are counting on getting some of that check that you earning down there at that wherever you at. That's a hell of a lot of pressure to put on a person, especially until the person don't react regardless of what it is. You have to maintain your frame at all times. You remember the O.J. Simpson trial. Remember when the attorneys, the prosecutors, Marcia Clark and Christopher Darden, were talking after O.J. had got off. Okay, and I didn't say he was innocent after O.J. got off. Okay. And Darden started crying in front of the mic. And Johnny Cochran told him, "You're a professional. You never get emotional. You never cry."
Right.
And that's one Black man speaking to another Black man about that. Because for you to lose frame removes any ounce of credibility that you might have had.
Exactly. I know when I took my nationals for the pharmacy and I passed the test, I was so damn happy I screamed. And you ain't supposed to be making no noise in the testing room. But I was so damn happy I screamed. And I was like, oh, I'm sorry. Bro, I get down there in my car, I'm crying. I'm literally crying because I'm just so happy that I passed this damn test, that, I got my nationals, I got my license. And it was I was crying so hard, I damn wrecked my car. Because it was just overwhelming. It was fucking stressful, even prior to taking the test. Because I knew I had to hit a home run. It wasn't no, come back and take it 6 months later. I had to hit it. And I'm telling you, Doc, the pressure that was on me was just out of bounds. And it's like the God gave me a dream, like 2 or 3 nights prior to me taking the test, that I'm actually in the testing place and I'm seeing everything there. And I passed. And when I was sitting at the testing place and I then took the test, and then they give you a chance to go over your answers before you submit. And I happened to look, and the pencil and stuff was right there. The calculator was right there. The little flowers were right there. Same way as it was in my dream. And I was like, oh my God, I done been here before. I said, I'm not going to change nothing. I hit that send button right there and there, and the thing went bing, and it said pass. And I was like, yes, and everybody was looking at me. I'm like, I'm sorry. But, for me to be able to pass and go through that, and knowing that stress that was there, it was like unbelievable, really unbelievable. And I was just crying because I was just so happy. But that pressure, that pressure is, my God, that pressure is pressure. For real.
Yeah. Well, certainly.
Wow.
And the thing is that you get over that hurdle, whatever that hurdle is in your profession, and you're allowed to finally enter the race, and you recognize there are 400-500 more hurdles.
Exactly.
And you have people who are going to throw things your way simply because they're able to throw things your way.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So through the final sequence, we see flashes of his journey. sleeping on floors, carrying all his possessions. This wasn't just about his own dignity. It was about changing the material reality for his son.
Yeah.
As we approach the 250th anniversary, how central is the economic battle to the story of Black fatherhood?
How central? Say that again.
Mm-hmm. How central is the economic battle to the story of Black fatherhood?
I would argue it's in the top three.
Mm.
Especially when you're living in a nation and amongst a people where the women have been convinced that men who don't have financial resources should not even be procreating. That you can't be a real man if you are not paying all the bills.
Mm-hmm.
That you cannot be head of household if you are not making the overwhelming majority of money. Not to mention the idea of just being able to sign your child up for Taekwondo, being able to take a trip every once in a while to expose your child to something else. We're in a capitalist nation, and money is very important. The securing of money helps you in the present and will allow you to make some plans for the future.
Mm.
And it's, one of the things that I just, before we came on, I had a conversation with what I would argue is one of the top 5 most ridiculous people in the world, in my life at least, my sister. Okay. She comes up with these very harebrained schemes of something that she's going to do. If she watched HGTV, she decided that she wanted to have an open concept home. Okay. She gets my dad, who used to be a painter, so he knows, I guess, some things about the structure of a home. And she tells my dad, what I'm going to do is I'm going to knock this wall down so that all of this open up. And he said, have you looked at the blueprints? She said, well, no. He said, okay, well, look, let me explain it to you like this. You're going to really have an open concept home if you knock this wall down and it's load bearing. He said, all your roof is going to come down here and you be looking at the outside. Well, a conversation I had before we started tonight was she's looking for a new car. And she said she saw something called a Wagoneer or something. She's convinced herself that she needs a big SUV. I said, so how much does that cost? She said, oh, it's a little bit over 65,000. I was like, what? You got 65 grand that you get ready? No, I ain't got that. I was like, oh, okay. And I told her, I was like, yo, you need to back up off of that a little bit, and get into your financial ballpark of what it is that you can afford comfortably. That's a very difficult thing for someone to do, that a father to do for his children when he isn't making a decent wage, when you're literally living paycheck to paycheck. The absence of economic viability and success, it drains you. It makes you irritable. It leads to frustration, leads to depression. And depression is a road that will take you straight to drug addiction, especially amongst the people who alcohol is prevalent, weed is prevalent, dope, my best friend told me, he was on the subway. He said, man, look here, I ain't never seen nothing like it before. The dope fiend is back. He said they on there nodding on the subway now. Okay. So all these things are attached to fatherhood as far as making money, getting a home, getting a stable home for your child, being able to have extracurricular activities. So, making money in a capitalist nation is almost a god. Changes your life that much.
Wow. All right. One more question. When the white dude, I forget his name, asked Chris, was it as easy as it looked? And Chris' response was, no, sir. Oh, no, sir, it wasn't. America loves a success story, but often overlooked the invisible struggle that precedes it. In your view, Doc, how much of the Black struggle, the immense, unseen effort required just to get to the starting line, is completely invisible to mainstream America?
All of it.
Mm.
Absolutely, positively, every single moment of it, every element of it. You know, one of the things that one of my very good friends, Regina Al Hassan, the research pro, her and he actually married my cousin, brother by the name of good brother named Charles Ewing. They do the Queen's Address. They have their own podcast, the Queen's Address. Him and my cousin Jamila Rawls, but Regina and Charles actually got connected because he was trying to get someone to fundraise for his entity, and she's a fundraiser for nonprofits and what have you. But one of the things that they do that I think is very dope, and I wish more Black folk would do it, and I actually want to find someone to do this with as well. They have breakfast together virtually, and while they're having breakfast, they're both working, and you're able to see how other people work, to see what their workflow is like. You get to see behind that curtain. So many people have said to me over the years. I was making this comment about Cornel West, and I said West is the type of brother that will, after you listen to him talk, you'll say, man, I need to go get my library card and go check out a whole bunch of books and read. And I asked my students in one class, I said, y'all ever met anybody like that? And they all start laughing. And they said, yeah, you. And I'm like, huh? They're like, yeah, you. And when I thought about that comment, I've had people tell me that they've never met anybody who has read the historical stuff that I read and yet can still recite hip hop and things like that. And it was an enjoyable path. This is the path that God wanted me to be on, because it's easy for me, it's seamless for me. But I spent a lot of time doing it. And I'll end with this. One of my former students, he actually is a diehard Republican, believe it or not. His name is Bradford Traywick. Traywick was starting a organization very similar to Manhood, Race, and Culture. And he wanted to do a blog, and he wanted to write. And one day I'm up writing at my normal time. I usually rise at about 4 a.m. and I write from about 4 to 8 every morning, just lock myself away and write. And I went on Facebook to look for something. And he happened to be there, and he sends me a message. He says, okay, yeah, now I get it. He said, I didn't understand how you could be producing something every day. He said, now I get it. You don't sleep. You up at 4 a.m. People don't see that. They just see what you send, what you post, and what have you. So that behind the scenes grind, is something that people don't see, because they only see, probably the only 4 to 5% of what you put out that is perfect, and you feel like you can put that out. There was a brother who he was in real estate, and someone made the comment to him that he was lucky because he was having all this great success and this and that, and he took offense to it. And I said, no. I said, don't be offended by that. I said, you are lucky, but only in the sense of this: luck is when opportunity meets preparation. That's luck. And you spend all this time preparing, so when that opportunity presented itself, you jump right on it because you were already prepared. So I wish that more people could understand that you got to lock yourself away to build something. There are going to be a lot of parties you can't go to. There are going to be a lot of events that you can't go to, a lot of things that you don't know about that other people are versed in. But you don't have to do that if you want to be elite at anything in your life.
Excellent, excellent. I definitely agree. One more question on the Black father, real quick, Doc. Is it more important to have your child for your child to inherit values or stability?
I would argue that those are the same things. You know, but if I had to choose, I would say values, because quite simply, values are going to build character, and that character is what's going to lead you to be as stable as you can be as a Black man here in America, to be actually anchored in something that is significant and meaningful. Kwame Kilpatrick, former mayor of Detroit, the brother that got in all that trouble, Kwame Kilpatrick said something to the effect that his talent took him places where his character couldn't maintain him. And that's what I see a lot of brothers do, that their talent can take them to the stratosphere, but being able to maintain it and handle any modicum of success proves to be very difficult for some people. I see it almost on a daily basis.
Wow. All right, Doc, well, we have reached our closing. When you do your closing comments, we're going to move to that. I do have a question that I want you to deal with in your closing comments. And that question is for Black men coming of age in 2026, the year of the 250th. What is the single most important truth about his American inheritance that he must understand to build a life not just of survival, but of meaningful joy? What must he understand?
I think that the single greatest thing that you need to understand is, number one, this is your nation, that your ancestors placed a stake here, and that stake has grown. And you are definitely within reasonable bounds to demand your portion of this nation. There's no place in this nation that you don't have a right to belong to. Yet at the exact same time, recognize that your white countrymen, as James Baldwin would refer to them as, your white countrymen are trying to survive. And the greatest path, the easiest path to survive, is by blocking you from having any access to your inheritance. This is going to be a long, protracted battle that you're going to have to engage in. So get your gear strapped on and recognize that there is no do-over, there is no reset. Step forward with strength, with pride and honor, and understand that you are in a battle, and you are going to battle those who are your countrymen as well as those who are not. You're going to battle those who are within your household sometimes. But develop a goal and understanding of what the end game is for you, and always remember what that is and strive for it.
Definitely. Beautiful. Right. Anything else you want to add, Doc?
Yeah, man, just happy to be here, man. Just happy to be here with you. When you deal with once again, the isolation of writing, living life and what have you. It's great to be around family, to not be maligned, attacked, judged harshly. So love you all. Glad to be here, and look forward to seeing y'all next week.
Yes, sir. Love you too. So for my closing arguments, or my closing comments, we have spent the last 2 hours looking back on 250 years. But let's be clear, this has not been an audit of grievances. This has been reading of the ledger. For centuries, we have been asked to see ourselves as a guest in the house, grateful for entry, patient for a seat at the table. Tonight we serve notice that this narrative is over. We are not guests. We are the foundation. We are the mortar and the bricks and the steel and the frame. This nation's wealth was built on our free labor, and it is conscious, and its conscience was forged in the fires of our struggle. The American experience did not begin with a declaration. It began with the defiant first breath of a child born into bondage who knew somehow that they were meant to be free. So the question is not what America will do for us in the next 250 years. The question is, what will we do with the nation we have already shaped, paid for, and redeemed with our blood and our brilliance? The reckoning is not a threat. It is a promise that we will no longer ask for the American dream. We will instead continue to work for building the American reality that we must have. And that American reality starts with Black first. We thank you all for coming. We thank you all for joining us, giving us your time. And again, I want to welcome Sister Mayat to the program. Peace and blessings. We're glad you made it, Queen. Queen, I know who I am. Peace and blessings. We're glad that you made it. Earth Angel 1105 Remix. Peace and blessings. We are glad that you made it. Emerald Majesty. Peace and blessings. We are glad you made it. And Brother Willie Rivers. Peace and blessings. We are glad that you all have made it. Every day, when you wake up and you leave your home, you definitely have to establish your truth. Who are you? What are you? And what are you going to leave behind for your children? And was it Sankofa Face Yoga, something like that? We thank you as well for being here with us. We hope that y'all all have learned something this day, and we will catch you back again on Saturday, 7 o'clock Eastern, 6 p.m. Central. And we'll be back again tomorrow at 4 p.m. And we will be back Tuesday at 6. Peace and blessings. Assalamu alaikum. Shalom. Love y'all.
Peace.
Peace. So you better get the message and get it straight.
You're gonna need some bridge work. It's simple as that.
Because we're living in judgment. We're living in implementation.